she says, and that takes ages. There you go. Hi everyone, really happy to be live with Andrew. Do you want to start us off with an intro to you and your books?
What, sorry?
Do you want to start us off with an intro to you and your books?
Oh, yes, indeed, sorry. Yeah, just getting the volumes all sorted. It's Mad Panic Stations here. Latest book, Silent Ritual, another one in the Private Investigator Sherlock Patterson series. The first one was The Girl in the Loft. You know, I've come equipped with all the covers. This one sees Sherlock and his team dealing with some fairly gruesome murders in Glasgow. So we're right in the midst of the mean city itself, and there's a narrow escape at the very end for the both of them without giving too much away. So yeah, that's the latest one.
So when I think I first interviewed you, you just got Whirligig out.
Yeah, a long time ago. 2020, I think. 2020, I think it was. Yeah, that was my
prize.
That's right. Yeah, I was shortlisted for the McIlvanney and the Crime Writers Association New Blood Dagger. Yeah, not bad for a first book.
No, and it was really good. But as are these, they're all really enjoyable reads. There's both. I'm trying to think of how best to word this. Both of them have some quite sort of dark subject matter at times, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's not. I'm not cozy. I'm not a cozy writer. No.
Would it be fair to say you explore kind of concepts of like folk horror or like in alternative beliefs?
Yeah, you could probably classify that way. The Whirligig series, which is obviously that one followed by The Devil's Cut. They're both a bit darker than the Sherlock Patterson ones, I feel at least. And I'm actually writing a new one in that series as we speak, or trying to. keep finding things getting in the way, but yeah, that's what I'm writing at the moment. So yeah, they're a little bit darker, I think. I don't know. It's difficult to say, isn't it? The ones I'm doing for Storm Publications, The Girl in the Loft, Silent Ritual, perhaps are a bit lighter, but there's still gruesome deaths and some nasty characters. So I don't know. They're probably pretty much on a par in terms of darkness, maybe. I'm just trying to sell crazy crime fraternity, but I don't think I should.
Can you read them as like standalones, or are they best read in order? Because I feel like I've read them wrong because I read the second one first.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can read them as standalones. They're cunningly designed to be read that way. It does give me a slight hiccup. Same with any other author who's got a series on the go. You have to almost reintroduce the characters every book you do, just so people have got some handle on their backgrounds and what have you. So there's a little bit of repetitiveness going on, but it's kind of, if people pick them up as a standalone, they need to be able to ground the characters somehow or other. So yeah, but they can be read as standalones. And the third one in that series, the Girl in the Loft and Silent Ritual, that's actually with the publisher at the moment for what's called line edits. Those of you who don't know how it all works, basically you write a book, 99% of people don't want it. 99.999% of people don't want it, and you get rejections. It's the first thing you learn. And then when they do take it, it gets a comprehensive edit generally, and then people say, "Well, I like this, I like that, but I don't like how you done it," and you end up having to do a rewrite of a various amount. It can be very minor. Luckily, most of my books are fairly minor. Sometimes it can be a little bit major, and then when that bit's done, and you think, "Thank God, that's all done," it goes off to the line edit, and the line editors are these people looking out for misplaced commas and misspelt words, and occasionally they pick up on things that this person you're writing about who's just gone down the shops died 3 weeks ago. How's that work? and they catch these sorts of things as well. So yeah, that's where we are with that at the moment. But it should be coming out on NetGalley in January, I think, and the pre-orders might go live in a week, maybe less.
Oh, exciting. We've got some hellos from Donna and Sam.
Oh,
Both said,
Donna.
yeah. When you get your edits back, I've always wondered this. Do you, because it's like your baby when you've written a book, do you sort of get a bit grumpy with the editor when they send you like all these things that you might have done wrong? Do you ever want to be a bit like, no?
Well, I don't know. I mean, luckily it's not my baby. Otherwise, it's coming out with different coloured eyes and more arms and legs than it started with. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really too bothered. I've kind of put my trust in an editor. It's a bit of a you kind of work together really because what you're trying to do is do the best book you can. And quite often, I think the author is not the best person to make that judgment call because by the time I've sent the book off to the editor, I've read it, I don't know, 20 times all the way through, I should imagine. I'm sick to death of it. There could be glaring faults in it, but you get word blind effectively because you've read it so much that you do need someone else to give it a look over and a sanity check in a way. So, yeah, I mean, I sometimes get a little bit narky that they don't like some of the things I've done, or they want me to change it, or soften things, or take them down a notch, or extend the relationships a bit more because I tend to be a bit of an action merchant, really, the way I write. I don't tend to dwell too much on relationships, so I'm getting slapped around the head with that a lot, and I have to delve more into motivations and all that sort of stuff, which is a good thing. It's a learning process for me as well. So yeah, I think they do a good job, but it can be quite. It puts the W into work, I think.
So you say that, and then I feel like your characters are really well developed and quite interesting. Like they're sort of definitely got all their own idiosyncrasies, haven't they? They're like I was thoroughly involved with them from the start of the book.
Good. Well, that's the main thing. I mean, I like my characters. I think I know them quite well, but when I say the part of the editing process is to develop characters, it's not so much the characters themselves. It's more their perhaps emotional interactions with other members of the cast, if you like. So yeah, it's just being a bit more touchy feely and perhaps delving a little bit more into the sort of psychology of what makes people tick, which is a good thing. That's interesting as well. I enjoy that side of it.
I think there's quite a lot of that in your book, so just the way you construct the crimes and things, definitely in Silent Ritual, there was a lot of thought
Mm-hmm.
behind them, wasn't there? And purpose to everything that had happened.
Yeah, well, I had to have some rationale for this guy to do the things he was doing. At first sight, I don't want to give the plot away, but at first sight, it looks like a string of unconnected murders, especially the sort of original death that uh, they get called in to investigate, which is the son seemingly stabbing his father to death. Um, and they have to link up, they have to make some sort of sense, and I wanted to do that utilizing these sorts of rituals and basically overlaying Glasgow with these sort of ritualistic sites, all focusing in on one particular area, and tying that to an ancient old text. The missing pages from the Book of Kells, in fact, it turns out to be. I think I can give that away because you're not going to make anything out of the plot from that. But yeah, there has to be a rationale. And sometimes I'm perhaps accused of being overly convoluted in what I do, but you know, I have to be interested in it. So I guess that's the way it goes.
I like the convoluted plot.
Good, good,
Worked for me. And I felt like I learned some stuff about the history of Glasgow as well. I
brilliant.
hope
Well, that's
it's accurate.
yeah, yeah. I'm really pleased when people walk away from the book and they've learned something. I mean, I like to do that if I'm reading a book. I like to know the most obscure things that I learn, and you kind of think, oh, that was a fairly painless way of learning something.
Have you moved this series into Glasgow? Because I don't feel like your other books were set in Glasgow.
The girl in the loft was certainly not. I mean, the private investigator and his team are based in Glasgow, but all the action happens on this mysterious loft, which someone was complaining about. It was Loch Lomond. No, it's not. I don't actually say where it is, but for the sake of argument and because we're all secret here, no one knows anything, keeps it all quiet. It was actually a loch called Loch Etty. No, sorry, Loch Fyne. Loch Fyne. It has this particular thing called the Oiter, with Oiter Ferry at the end of it, which I always thought was Otter Ferry. But in fact, an Oiter is like a sort of gravel bank that goes out quite a long way. So yeah, that's where that one was set. The new one I've just finished. Hopefully, if the line edit doesn't come back with a host of work, it's actually set on one of the Western Isles, Isle of Mull, in fact. So I'm kind of subverting what is it? What do they call it? What's the story? Tobermory. They call it something else, don't they? Anyway, I'm subverting the Isle of Mull for my purposes. So we're having a couple of deaths there, not too many, because you know you can't really have too many deaths on an island, otherwise it starts getting a bit crazy.
How how many books are you thinking that you would have in the series? Because it must be quite. I'm not like super challenging because he's a private investigator, but to keep getting him involved in kind of active investigations must be a bit more tricky than if he was a policeman.
Yes and no. I'll tell you why I shifted from having a detective inspector, which was my whirligig series, um, because you're more restricted, I think, and more bounded by going for a sort of police procedural, because they're expected to work in one area and you know, obey the rules and the regulations and do things by the book, sort of thing. Um, but if you're a private investigator, you can go off to the other side of the world if the story asks for it, and you can also subvert the law to your own ends if you so wish to get to an answer. So those books are slightly more subversive, I guess, but because you've got that much greater freedom, I think it's probably easier to construct stories around a private investigator than it is for a detective inspector. Although saying that, as I started off, I am doing the third in the Whirligig series now. So yeah, I've gone back to visit D.I. Christophin and his team.
Brilliant. Do you how have your readers who joined you with the I Christophin and his team taken to the new series?
Yeah, I think as far as I can tell, I don't really get great visibility of who it is. Except the only way I can really do it is either people I need to talk to, or if there's names I recognise in reviews and things. So yeah, I think there's a degree of loyalty who've followed me through from the initial whirligig through to the girl in the loft and silent ritual. So yeah, they seem to enjoy them. There's not huge difference in the way they're written or anything. I think you can probably tell it's the same author writing them. So you know, if you kind of enjoy that sort of plotting and descriptive passages, a little bit purple prose maybe for some. But if you enjoy that sort of thing, then yeah, you should be able to enjoy both sets of books quite happily.
Haven't you got a standalone as well? Am I right? I feel
Yes,
like our Scottish admin, who's a champion of Scottish authors, has talked about your standalone book
I
quite a
have
lot.
A Song of Winter, which is a climate change novel, a fly-fi, um,
Yeah.
as it's called, climate fiction. I did have someone on Facebook actually um, say, fly-fi. What's the cli? What's the CLI stand for? Is it some sort of sexual thing? And I had to say, no, it doesn't stand for clitoris. It stands for climate. And if it was clitoris fiction, then I've instantly lost 50% of the market because they never find it on the shelves. So no, climate change. That.
Yes, that's a very newly invented word, though, isn't it? Climate fiction as sci-fi. I feel like someone like Greg Moss or Peter May made that up with their ones, and it's just caught on.
It's possible, yeah. I mean, there's another, Reg Scheller, a teller with her thirsty animals as well. That was a climate change fiction that came out last year as well. I mean, it's obviously something that's of interest to people because the climate is changing, whether that's man-made, as I suspect, or natural occurrences. Is up for discussion, but the climate is changing, and certainly in Spain just now, the disastrous results. So, yeah, I mean, the premise of A Song of Winter was that Scotland, well, in fact, the whole world gets thrown into a fairly quick ice age. And one of the factors I used, one of the scientific factors I used to explain the rationale for how that happened is the collapse of the Gulf Stream, which is also driven by the Atlantic Ocean current, the AMOC, as it's called. And in the news just this week, I see that current is fading. So if those circulatory systems, if you like, the blood that's pumping the blood around the body of the Earth does fail, then yeah, things are going to change. I mean, Glasgow, up not far from where I am, we're on the same latitude as Moscow, and they get a damn sight colder winters than we do. And that's purely because the Gulf Stream's there to keep us nice and toasty. Although you could argue how toasty it gets in winter in Scotland, but it's certainly a lot toastier than it would be if it wasn't for the Earth's circulatory currents helping spread the heat around and take the cold away. So yeah, that's the premise of that one. People liked it. It's good to write about this sort of thing, and I think it's quite healthy for me to not write crime all the time, so I can do something else.
Donna has asked if you have any say in your covers because they're all stunning.
Any what am I covered?
Any say in your covers because
Oh,
they are all stunning.
oh, that's very kind. Yes and no. I mean, the first ones, I've got a pile of them here, all ready to show. The first one's the girl in the probably whirligig and Devil's Cup whirligig specifically. It came from an idea of mine, and a graphic designer sort of came up with that concept. So I had quite a lot of input in that, and I really like that cover. The newer ones, which are all sort of photorealistic, or the use of Photoshop and taking existing photographs and doctoring and sort of thing, are much more similar to what you'd expect to find on the shelves for crime fiction. Um, so I don't have such an input on those. I tend to give prompts to the publisher and say, I think this sort of cover would work well. And they send the covers back to me, and I say, "Oh, that's great," or "Can we not have that?" or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's the publisher who chooses the cover, the title, and all the rest of it. I'm just a poor mug who comes up with the ideas and scribbles down the words. So yeah, but thanks, yeah, thanks for the a lot of thought goes into covers. I don't really know what I'm doing with covers, but people out there who know how people react to covers put a lot of thought and effort into it. So yeah, it's good to hear people like them.
Donna also says she likes an organised author ready to show off their books. We do like that. It's always handy when you have them to hand.
Yeah, I grabbed them as I was waiting for Chrome to download again, so I was almost totally unprepared. Um, Organized, I don't know. I don't know how organized I am really. Because you talk about writers being pantsers or plotters. Certainly, my good friend Marion Todd is very much a plotter, and her books all start their lives on Excel, um, and I can't do that really. I'm pretty much throw myself a blank sheet and see what sticks. Although saying that, my new publisher, Storm Publications, do ask for a synopsis of each book before I start off. So I've been forced into being a little bit more organised than I otherwise might be. But that's probably a good thing as well. I think it's very dangerous entering into writing a book without really the foggiest idea what you're doing. So yeah, that's probably a good discipline for me to learn.
A lot of authors do, though, don't they? There's more than you think.
Yeah, absolutely, and quite famous ones as well. I'm trying to think which one it was. Think one not that long ago, and she said, if I knew, you know, all the ins and outs of how a story went, I couldn't write it because I'd be too bored. I need to know what's happening. I need to be excited about turning the page and seeing what happens next. So I do veer into that side of being an author rather than knowing exactly what happens right up to the end. It also means when you get reviews from people saying, "Oh, I guessed who the murderer was on the first page," boring book, blah blah blah, 1 star. And I think, well, you did better than me because I didn't know until almost the last page who the murderer was. So yeah, you must have talent.
I think I had in Silent Ritual, I had an inkling of who it might be.
Mm-hmm.
There's a point where he goes to visit somewhere and they see some paintings, and I was like, "Oh, that's the
Yes,
person." But it I was thoroughly engaged in how they worked out who it was, so it didn't matter.
good, good. Yeah, no, that is good. I mean, you can play this game a bit too much. I think a lot of crime readers sort of love the jigsaw element of it. You've got the red herrings, and you've got the plot, and you've got the various, who could it be sort of thing, and they basically like to beat the author to the ending. I think that's fair to say, and then you get this feeling of satisfaction that you've completed the jigsaw before the author actually gets to the end of it. But that's a little bit, you're starting to go down the sort of tropes doing it that way, and you have to have a red herring, and you have to misdirect all the time, and I don't know if I don't really want to play those games. I'd rather it was more of a real mystery, or I don't even mind if I sort of out the guilty party early on, because the book's really about how the detective or the private investigator and his team actually get there. And in some ways, it's quite fun knowing who it is. The reader knows who it is and why it all happened before the actual your main protagonist work it out. You're one step ahead of them as well, but you can then be in a sort of godlike condition where you're looking down on them and seeing, oh, come on, that's an obvious one. You should have spotted that. Why didn't you follow that one up and all the rest of
Yeah, and then you can kind of talk along with it. I'm watching a crime show at the moment, and it's like you know who it's like a story of a real serial killer. So you know
it?
what
Oh,
he's done, and
yeah,
and then they're showing you all the ways of him before that, and you're like, why didn't you work it out there? Like we
yeah,
could have stopped him, and
yeah.
he
Well,
just
absolutely.
tackle it all the way through.
Yeah, well, you get programs like the American series with the pathologist Dexter. If you ever watch any of those, You know, turns out the pathologist is the one brutally chopping everyone up, and and he knows his way around a crime scene, so he leaves no DNA or anything. And, then he's the one who's called in to investigate it. So that's quite a clever concept. But you know, everyone knows it's him who's the guilty party. But then the fun of it comes from how he outwits the police himself, and you know, his motivations, and will he get caught? You know, that's always hanging in the background. So yeah, there's ways of playing the game, I think.
Yeah. Will you be so you've said that you're writing more in this series and then you're going back to the previous series as well. Are you
Yes.
tempted to delve back into doing some more standalones?
Yeah, I've actually got so many books puzzling around in my head that I don't know if I'll be around long enough to do them all. Um, the Whirligig series, Whirligig and The Devil's Cup, they were published by an outfit called Fledgling Press in Edinburgh. Um, a really nice lady, Claire Kane, took me on right at the beginning. And you know, she was the only one brave enough to run with Whirligig, to be honest. Um, she's now gone into retirement, so those titles have reverted to me. So at the moment, I'm in the process of popping them out on Amazon myself as a self-published thing. Um, so they're available as Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, and the paperbacks will be out very soon once I've sorted out some formatting issues. They were out, but I wasn't happy with how they looked, so they'll be going out again probably next week. So they're out there once more, but and I'm sort of, you know, clause of confidentiality, so I can't say anything about it. But there's someone out there wants to do those books again and add another one. So hence me working on the third one at the moment. So I've got those to do. I wrote. I took Robert Louis Stevenson's Kidnapped and rewrote it, or I used it as inspiration, should I say more honestly, to write a sort of standalone based on that sort of concept and set it very much in the modern day. Um, and my protagonist there, instead of David Balfour being a 18-year-old young man or whatever he was, something like that, turns out to be an 18-year-old Iraqi refugee woman. So I've, I've sort of turned that on its head quite a lot. And I got to the end and thought, oh, good, that's good. And then I kind of read it and put it to one side, and then I read it again. And I've realized that my 18-year-old young woman has the thought processes and, and sort of sees life as a an older middle-aged man. So I'm going to have I'm going to have to go back and do some drastic surgery on that one before it can go out. But you know, it's good to spot these things. Um, and I've also the very first book I wrote way back in 2018, I think it was when I first thought I'd start writing. Is this fairy tarte noir, which is a genre that doesn't even exist anyway. Um, and that's called One Is One, and that was on Amazon for a while, but I took it off. And I need to rewrite that because I see that as a trilogy. So that's an interesting book as well, because it takes a character called Thomas the Rhymer, and yeah, a lot of the English American viewers won't be familiar with him, but he was a seer in the 12th century, 13th century in the Scottish borders, foretold a lot of events, and he was meant to have disappeared with the fairies, um, never to be seen again. Now, I was at a book festival coming up last weekend in a place called Aberfoyle, where I was talking about some of my books, and I did a creative writing course at the same time. But there's a little hill there called Fairy Hill, and a guy there is meant to have disappeared along with the fairies. A clergyman back in 17th century, I think it was, a guy called the Reverend Robert Kirk, who wrote a book called The Secret Commonwealth, and you can get that actually on download it for free if you hunt around.
I
But
think I've got a copy of it somewhere.
have you? There you go. It's
Yeah.
really interesting book because back then it was perfectly normal to believe in fairies and all the rest of it. We've kind of lost that now. Anyway, I shouldn't rabbit on about this because it's not even a thing at the moment. But I've basically taken the idea, the premise that Thomas the Rhymer disappears off with the fairies, and he appears back in the modern day with his mind fairly fried, and he's dancing around in the wilderness, not really sure what he's doing. But I thought I can do that because there's a time dilation between fairyland and us here, where you quite often read about someone disappears off with the fairies for a night, and when they come back, 100 years have passed. So I thought, okay, he's been away, what, I don't know, 8, 9 centuries, whatever. That equates to a couple of years, sort of thing. So yeah, he's perfectly able to come back again. That was kind of the premise of that, and I've mixed it up with a sort of police procedure and a private investigator and all the rest of it, and set it in the modern day. So it's a really weird book, but I like it, and I must get back to it and put it out there again.
You really must, because I need to read that now.
Right, there you go. I might send you a secret copy.
Excellent. That's really exciting. That sounds exactly like the kind of book I want to read.
There you go then. It did in a short time. It was on Amazon. It got a Silver Readers Award. I'm not quite sure what that is, but I thought, oh, that's nice. Yeah, people like it that read it.
I like that you kind of play with bringing in other bits of genres and things, or you're interested with playing with like writing in different genres as well.
Yeah, yeah. I never saw myself as a crime writer, to be honest. It's just something I had a pop at, and blow me down. It went very well. And I do. There's things about crime writing I enjoy. I enjoy the sort of the complexities of it, and I enjoy the motivations that make people do some of the things they do. One day I'll understand why America voted for Trump, but at the moment I haven't quite worked that one out. And by the way, commiserations to all the women in America. There, yeah, you have my deepest sympathy for that. But hey, we don't want to go into politics. But yeah, I quite like mixing the genres about, and I quite fancy having a pop at science fiction as well, which I think would be okay because Doug Johnston, of course, you know, he's written his book about octopuses or something from outer space. So if he can do it, it's okay.
Isn't Doug Johnston like a quantum physicist thing?
Yeah, he does have that advantage on me. I'm not a classically trained physicist with degrees falling out my back pockets. But I read a lot, so yeah, I'm interested in that stuff.
Yeah, I like a bit of sci-fi. I like the science to be really accurate though. When I read
Mm,
sci-fi, I want it to be
yeah, on point, as it were. Well,
yeah.
when I did the launch for A Song of Winter, because there's quite a lot of science in that. Not too much. I hate to. I don't want to put people off it. But in the audience, I had I think 3 geologists, one of whom was had a PhD in it or something like that. So there I was talking about these sort of geological constructs and deep time and the Earth being around for 4.5 billion years and these ocean currents and all the rest of it. And I had an audience sort of waiting to pin me down, but I seem to get away with it. So yeah, I think the science is fairly accurate. And I'm not too sure about the star Betelgeuse blowing up in the sky, which also is part and parcel of it. Betelgeuse, for those of you that don't know, if you look up in the sky, there's one star you always see, which is twinkling like an absolute lunatic, and it's sort of red and green and blue and orange and yellow and purple, and it does all these wild colours. Um, and it's physicists or astronomers or astrophysicists think it's about to go supernova and blow up. Well, actually, it could have gone supernova quite a long time ago because it's quite a few 100 light years away from here, a long way off. So we're seeing it all in history, really.
Yeah, it blows my mind, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff.
Because it's all just like maths as well, isn't it? Like physics. Just
Yeah,
you're basically just doing some kind of like fancy applied maths at the point where they're studying things. Blows my mind.
yeah, but the more you go into it, the weirder it gets. I mean, Einstein had this thing, spooky action at distance, because you get this thing called quantum entanglement between particles. So I don't know, if you split your atom in two, sort of thing, and you send one to the other side of the known universe, quite a way away, and you're able to sort of pick the one this end, and the other one gets a kick as well. Uh, these things make no sense at all, unless you start getting into the realms of string theory, where there might be as many as, I don't know, 13 universes all operating, the 13 dimensions all operating right next to us, and everything's made out of little vibrating strings. And depending how they vibrate, they're electrons or quarks or whatever. It's amazing stuff. Big
Yeah.
leap, big amazing.
Hmm? So, while we're on off topic completely on the topic of physics,
Yeah,
yeah, we've gone dramatically off track, haven't we? Tell everyone what you've been reading recently and really enjoyed.
oh, the book I read not that long ago, which I really enjoyed, was Percival Everett's The Trees. He was shortlisted, I think, for the Booker Prize last year. I don't know if you've read it at all or heard of it. He's a Black American professor of English, and this book, The Trees, basically involves a lot of rednecks down in the deep south of America meeting rather horrendous ends. So it's a good crime book. But you don't have to go too many pages in to realise that it's formerly deceased black victims that are actually doing the killing. it's, got, it's got a sort of supernatural edge to it, but of course he has a black detective coming in to investigate this from the big city, and all the local police. It's a bit like The Dead of the Night with Sidney Poitier. He's a black guy in a very white sort of Ku Klux Klan sort of environment. Uh, so yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the way he played. He played on those sort of racial stereotypes and all the rest of it. So that was very good. Another one I was thinking of. The man, the big man, the man. I'm trying to recollect. It's that a guy in Australia who no, sorry, Ireland, Southern Ireland. He goes back to the village where he was born, and starts digging around to find out what happened to his mother, who died in suspicious circumstances. I can't remember the name of the book or the author at this stage, but that was very good because it had the mystery element, but the way the writer did the characterization was very, very good. You could almost wear their skin. They were giving you such an excellent sort of internal and external description of what they were and how they were and all the rest of it. And that's something that's worth learning as a writer, because I'm always learning. Every book I write, I learn something. It's good to know that you can describe people in such intimate detail that they become real on the page, and I think that's a real trick, which I tried to get to, but I'm a way off yet. But if you can do that, then I think it allows the reader to lose themselves more in a book, and once you start believing in the characters and the events, then you're kind of there, aren't you? You don't want to be you don't want to be held back by thinking, I don't really care what happens to this person. do not finish, should not finish. You don't want that.
No, and it must be quite hard, sort of writing and then hoping that that's what people are going to do. People are going to fall into your book and just be absorbed. It must be quite tricky to know if you pulled that off without it just being out in the world. And
Yeah, I mean, well, back to putting your babies out there, really, aren't we? This creative writing course I did, I was trying to get people to. I was giving them little scenarios and getting them to write about them for 5 minutes and then talk about them within the group. Only a small group, 11 people or something. Um, and some of them were more than happy to do so, but more than half, I suspect, weren't happy to speak at all, and that's fine. I think people have to feel that no one's going to pressurize them. But if you're going to write, and you want to write for a reason other than just your diary, if you want to write stuff that other people can see, uh, part of that process is other people have to see it and hear it and all the rest of it. So somewhere along the line, you have to put a book out there or your work out there and see what happens. And I always get this sort of, I'm going to veer off topic again, one of these sort of Star Trek shields up moments when I put a book out. You never know. You never know. You think you've written an okay book. I never feel I've written a great book, but I always think I've written an okay book, and you really hope people will enjoy it. But until it's out there and the reviews start coming in a sort of number, you don't know, because uh, typically the first few reviews that come in tend to be either friends or family or die-hard fans and all the rest of it, and they're all 5 star and they all say best things since sliced bread. And I don't really believe I don't believe any of those. I'm looking for Mrs. Bloggs from Northampton, who I haven't got a clue who that might be, saying, "Oh, I really loved it," or "Oh God, it was so unrealistic," and blah blah blah. And after you've got enough reviews out there, then you've got an idea, I think, of how it's done. But one of the big advantages of having a sort of editor and a sort of team behind you is that they're going through it all, and they're generally picking up the worst sins you've made in writing it and put you right. And so, yeah, I think probably the bigger you are as a writer and the more your books are selling, then probably your product's going to improve purely because the publisher, or agent, but publisher, is investing time and money into making sure it's as good as possible. But rambling, but there you go. I hope you got me.
no, it's perfectly fine to ramble. I really did sort of get thoroughly absorbed into the silent ritual. I've gone back and downloaded book one to
Oh, good.
read as well. Because I'd sort of been struggling to find something recently that I was enjoying reading, and when I picked that up, I was just absorbed, which was lovely.
Good. Yeah, it's good to hear that.
Um, so, what can you tell us about the book that's with the editor that's coming up in that series? What happens in that one?
Right, the latest in the sort of silent ritual series, going along silent ritual. I have my man Sherlock. Um, Sherlock being the Gallic for Charlie, but it sounds very much like Sherlock, which is why I went for it. A little pun. There you go. Sherlock's approached by an old flame of his. Well, not really a flame. He spent his sort of earlier years and teenage years on the Isle of Mull. Um, and this is a girl that he always fancied there, although she never really fancied him. But he always held a candle, held a flame to her, and she turns up on his at his offices in Glasgow, wanting to look into the death of her husband. who it appears, as a wildlife photographer, met an accidental death falling off a cliff. And Sherlock certainly thinks that's what happened, and any other ideas were quite absurd, really. But as a favour to her, he goes over there, and uh, before he's even set foot on the place, really, he's approached by someone else whose boy has gone missing. And after a little inquiry, it turns out the boy is not a man, really, the boy. He says, we tend to look for children, missing children, but it's a grown-up guy he's looking for as well. And all these things kind of start linking together as they do, and you come up with a reason all these things happen. And it's all to do with, human failings, um, failed relationships, all that sort of stuff. So it's a sort of a touchy-feely, more touchy-feely than a Slaughterfest, that the last one might have been. Although the first book in that series, Good and the Lost, is more of you know, um, more errors one on top of the other causing problems than anyone being downright vicious and evil.
Do you ever find anyone struggling with the name of your main character who doesn't know how to pronounce their?
Yeah. People often ask me, well, the audio book narrator wanted to know how to pronounce it. So yeah, it's a little bit. I do sort of spell it out in the book, pronounced Charlock, in the hope that people pick up on it. But yeah, it can be a problem to give someone a slightly unusual name, although it's not that unusual in the if you go into the Western Isles where we're or the far Western Isles where Gaelic is still spoken.
Do you have you got any other sort of events coming up? So you said you're
No,
recently.
you're my biggest event at the moment. I did have this, as I say, the Aberfoyle and Smetard Book Festival last weekend, which was great fun. But it's only the second one they've done, so it's still quite a small little festival, small but perfectly formed, I'd say. And it did also give me the chance to, for the first time ever, to run a creative writing workshop, which was quite a frightening experience for me. But I'm coming at it from the point of being a professional, I guess. So I shouldn't really be too bothered. But yeah, that went very well. And they had some good people there, so that was interesting. I've not really had much this year. The year before, I had quite a few appearances at festivals and such like. Granite Noir, I Write, Bloody Scotland, quite a few of them really. This year I seem to have dropped off the radar, which is a bit of a shame, but maybe next year I'll have a bunch of this, who knows. I mean, I can talk the back legs off a donkey. There's lots of donkeys around here who have to hobble around on their front feet only.
I'm gonna ask you one of the questions that's come on the stream because I've been so fascinated by you. I've not been paying attention to the stream. Um, so Sharon Birch has asked you: is character or setting more important to your writing?
Okay, Sharon, that's a deep one, isn't it? I think they're equal, which isn't what you want to hear, but I have to. Setting is very important to me because I'm someone who writes from a sort of visual perspective, sort of filmic, really. I see it all happening on a reel inside my head, even the gruesome bits. Um, so, for example, taking us way back to early gig, the first crime book I wrote, where I literally started with a blank sheet of paper and no idea what I was doing at all. I just had this vision of an old oak tree in an isolated Scottish glen, and the camera kind of zoomed in on it under the canopy of leaves, all the rest of it, and there's this a dead rabbit hanging on a snare, and it was dropping down very, very slowly, bit by bit, out the tree. And the snare mechanism, if you like, was driving this clockwork made out of human bones and bits of wood and all the rest of it. It's truly macabre things going on inside my head there. And then this sort of snare, big snare, drops down out of the leaves, and it's kind of hidden by the shadows and all the rest of it. And then this guy turns up, a rather nasty bit of work. He's the gamekeeper, who's just beaten up his woman who's pregnant and left her fairly broken on and bloodied in the gamekeeper's cottage. Anyway, he comes along on his bike and his quad bike, and his neck catches in the snare, and he's killed off. So that's how that started, and everything else sort of developed from there. So the setting, the setting was what created the story for me. So that must be very important. But then also I needed to know that the gamekeeper who gets caught by it was a nasty bit of work. Although he had his reasons, his upbringing and all the rest of it, and his life experience all served to make him that way. And his woman, what was she doing with him? Why was she with him? What was she going to do now that she was pregnant and her man was no more? Was she happy about that? Well, she was to a degree. So both those characters had to arrive on the page fully formed as well. So once you've got your characters and you've got your setting, I think the rest tends to follow, or just for me. So I don't think I could cope with one taking predominance over the other. I think for me they're equally as important.
Good answer.
Thank you.
You've got 2 minutes left. Now you've drawn people in with that marvellous discussion at the beginning of Whirligig. Do you want to remind people what they're going to go away and buy if they've been watching this chat?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your books.
What can we do? Well, you can buy all of them. I got 2 minutes. You can buy A Song of Winter. I feel like it's one of these game shows where the guy at the end says, "Sure, I remember a pair of sliding doors." But anyway, that's a standalone fly-fi. Fly stands for Flynet. Yep. Or you can buy my first crime novel, Whirligig, shortlisted for this, shortlisted for that. Available at this very moment as a Kindle and a Kindle Unlimited and paperback in a few days. Ditto the Devil's Cut, second in that series. If that doesn't take your fancy, then my more recent one might, which is the Silent Ritual, first one in the Private Investigator series with Private Investigator Sherlock Patterson, and the totally belter Dee, who looks in, a wild woman indeed. And the second one, I say, got the other way around, but the first one in the series, The Girl in the Loft. So yeah, and as I say, new ones in both series coming to an Amazon near you in the not too distant future. Bookshops might take them, I don't know. I think the financials don't really stock up particularly well for bookshops with my books at the moment. So yeah, you must probably have to buy them from an online seller.
But watch this space because they may come to bookshops soon. And then it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you tonight.
It's been a delight. It's been too long. Must be at least a year, if not longer.
Well, you know where we are. You can come back anytime.
I don't overdo it. There's lots of other very good authors who need a show as well. So thanks so much for having me, and I very much enjoyed myself, and I hope whoever's out there watching has enjoyed themselves as well.